If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more emotional journeys like this one. Now, let's dive into the life of Margaret Miller. The evening air hung heavy with perfume and anticipation as Margaret Miller stood in the doorway of the grand ballroom of the Beacon Hill Hotel. At 48, her hands bore the subtle marks of 2 decades of labor. Small burns from hot trays, calluses from countless hours of scrubbing. She smoothed down her navy dress, purchased after 3 months of saving, and watched as her son Daniel adjusted his tie in front of a gilded mirror. "Mom, stop fidgeting," Daniel said with a warm smile. "Everything is perfect." Margaret nodded, though her heart wasn't convinced. This rehearsal dinner represented everything she had sacrificed for. Her son, now 26, stood on the precipice of a successful law career after graduating from Boston University. His engagement to Jessica Reynolds, daughter of the prominent Reynolds family, should have been the culmination of all Margaret's hard work and sacrifice. Yet, something in Jessica's smile never quite reached her eyes when she looked at Margaret. The Reynoldses moved through the room like royalty, Jessica's father Charles greeting guests with practiced charm, her mother Victoria directing staff with impatient gestures. Their clothing, their jewelry, their very posture spoke of generations of wealth, or so they wanted everyone to believe. "Mrs. Miller," Jessica approached, champagne flute in hand, her designer dress probably costing more than Margaret's monthly salary. "Could we have a word in private?" Margaret followed Jessica to a small anteroom, noting how the younger woman's demeanor shifted once they were alone. "I wanted to discuss tomorrow," Jessica said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Of course, dear. Is there anything I can help with?" Margaret offered. Jessica's perfect smile tightened. "Actually, I think we should clarify expectations. After tomorrow, you're not part of this family anymore." The words landed like a physical blow. Margaret's breath caught. "I'm sorry?" she managed. "Daniel is joining our world now," Jessica continued, examining her manicure. "The country club events, the charity boards, the partnerships at Reynolds and Associates. You understand how appearances matter. I'm his mother," Margaret said simply. "And you've done your job." Jessica's tone was dismissive. "But let's be honest, your presence would be uncomfortable for everyone. My parents have arranged everything perfectly, including Daniel's future. There's simply no place for a cafeteria worker in that picture." The door opened before Margaret could respond. Daniel peeked in. "Everything okay in here?" "Perfect," Jessica chirped, her face transforming instantly. "Just giving your mom some details about tomorrow." As Jessica swept past, linking her arm with Daniel's, Margaret stood frozen, feeling her world collapse around her. Dawn broke over Boston Harbor as Margaret sat at her small kitchen table, a cup of untouched tea growing cold before her. She hadn't slept, Jessica's words playing on endless repeat in her mind. Her modest apartment bore witness to 20 years of sacrifices. The faded couch where she'd spent countless nights helping Daniel with homework after 16-hour shifts. The dining table where they'd celebrated every achievement with whatever small treat she could afford. The wall covered with Daniel's accomplishments, honor roll certificates, his law school acceptance letter, his graduation photo. Margaret picked up her phone, staring at the screen. 3 missed calls from Daniel. She couldn't face him yet, couldn't risk breaking down and ruining his day with her pain. Instead, she dialed another number. "Linda? It's Margaret. I need your advice." Linda Chen had been Margaret's friend since they'd started working at Massachusetts General Hospital's cafeteria together 15 years ago. While Margaret had remained serving food, Linda had worked her way into an administrative position at the hospital's legal department. "Jessica said what?" Linda's voice crackled through the speaker. "That's unbelievable. I don't know what to do," Margaret admitted. "The wedding is in 8 hours. And you're just going to let her cut you out of your son's life?" Margaret sighed. Maybe she's right. Daniel deserves better than— "Stop right there," Linda interrupted. "Margaret Miller, for 20 years I've watched you work double shifts to put that boy through school. I've seen you pass up promotions because the new schedule would mean missing his basketball games. You've never taken a vacation, not once in 20 years. Tears streamed down Margaret's face. I've been hearing rumors about the Reynoldses, Linda continued, her voice lowering. Their company isn't doing well. I have a friend in corporate law who mentioned something about potential bankruptcy filings. Margaret wiped her eyes. What does that have to do with Daniel? I don't know, but something feels wrong. What if they're after something? A text message appeared on Margaret's phone from Daniel. Mom, where are you? Call me. I need to think, Margaret said. I can't go to that wedding, Linda. I just can't. After hanging up, Margaret composed a text to her son. Daniel, I'm not feeling well. I think it's best if I don't attend today. I love you and wish you all the happiness in the world. Her finger hovered over the send button for a long moment before pressing it. The church bells of St. Cecilia's were scheduled to ring at 2 o'clock to announce the union of Daniel Miller and Jessica Reynolds. At 1:17, Margaret's doorbell rang instead. She opened it to find Daniel, still in his sweatpants and t-shirt, his face pale and drawn. Daniel, what are you doing here? You should be getting ready. He brushed past her into the apartment. The wedding's off, Mom. Margaret froze. What? What happened? Daniel sank onto the couch, running his hands through his hair. Last night, after you left, Jessica got drunk. Really drunk. She got into a fight with her bridesmaid Olivia and said some things. About me. About you. Margaret sat beside him, heart pounding. I was worried about you this morning when you texted, he continued. I went to Jessica's suite to talk about postponing so you could feel better. Her phone was on the bathroom counter when it lit up with a message. His voice cracked. From her boss, Gregory, saying he couldn't wait to see her again after the honeymoon, that he'd missed their meetings. Margaret took her son's hand. Oh, Daniel. When I confronted her, she didn't even deny it. Said it wasn't serious and that our marriage was about more important things than fidelity. He laughed bitterly. Then her father burst in, furious that I was considering postponing. He started talking about the prenup, how it was too late to change anything. Prenup? Margaret asked. You never mentioned a prenup. Because I never saw the final version. Daniel's eyes met hers. Mom, they changed it. The original agreement was standard protection of pre-existing assets. But the version they had ready for me to sign this morning, it would have entitled Jessica to 75% of all my future earnings as a lawyer. Margaret gasped. That's not a marriage contract, that's theft, Daniel finished. And when I refused to sign, Mr. Reynolds started threatening me. Said I'd never work in Boston if I embarrassed his daughter. That's when Jessica admitted everything. He stood up, pacing the small living room. Her family's company is filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy next month. They're millions in debt. This whole wedding was a scheme to get access to my future income. And Jessica? She never loved me. It was all an arrangement. Margaret felt dizzy with the revelation. I'm so sorry, Daniel. Don't be. His voice hardened. I'm the one who's sorry. Because when I was walking out, Jessica said something else. She told me that she'd made it clear to you last night that you weren't welcome in our lives anymore. Margaret looked away, unable to meet his eyes. Is that why you weren't coming today? Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to ruin your happiness, she whispered. You seemed so in love, so excited about your future. Who was I to stand in the way of that? Daniel knelt before her, taking her hands in his. You're my mother, the woman who worked herself to exhaustion to give me every opportunity. Who thinks I don't notice when she skips meals so I can have seconds? Who still has the same winter coat from when I was in high school because every extra dollar went to my education? Tears streamed down Margaret's face as 20 years of sacrifice and love overflowed. I'm so sorry I didn't see what was happening, Daniel said. Margaret shook her head. Love can be blinding sometimes. Daniel's phone buzzed repeatedly. That's probably the Reynoldses. They've been calling nonstop since I left the hotel. What are you going to do now? First, I'm going to order us some takeout from that Chinese place you love. Then tomorrow, we'll figure out how to let everyone know the wedding is canceled. As Daniel called in their order, Margaret's phone lit up with a notification, a social media alert that made her blood run cold. By Sunday morning, the digital character assassination was in full swing. Victoria Reynolds had posted a lengthy, tearful video describing how that cafeteria worker had manipulated her son into abandoning Jessica at the altar. Charles Reynolds had contacted his friends at the Boston Herald, spinning a tale of a jealous mother who couldn't bear to see her son elevate his social standing. "This is slander," Linda said, scrolling through her phone as she sat at Margaret's kitchen table. "They're painting you as some kind of monster." Daniel paced the small apartment, furious. "I've already called them, demanded they take it down. Charles threatened to sue me for the wedding costs if I don't fix this mistake." Margaret watched them both, oddly calm. 20 years of being underestimated had prepared her for this moment. "Linda," she said quietly, "you mentioned your friend in corporate law, the one who knew about the Reynolds' financial troubles. Could we speak with them?" 3 hours later, Margaret sat across from Elaine Winters, a sharp-eyed attorney with 25 years of experience in corporate bankruptcy. "The Reynolds aren't just in trouble," Elaine explained, spreading documents across her desk. "They're completely underwater. They've been hiding assets, manipulating stock prices, and misrepresenting their finances to shareholders for years." Daniel leaned forward. "How is this not public knowledge?" "Because they've been very careful, very connected, and very lucky, until now." Elaine tapped a document. "They filed preliminary Chapter 11 paperwork last week. Once this becomes public, the Reynolds name won't open any doors anymore. And they knew this when they arranged our marriage," Daniel said bitterly. "The timing suggests that was exactly their plan," Elaine agreed. "This prenuptial agreement is predatory. No ethical attorney would have drafted it." "What can we do?" Margaret asked. Elaine smiled. "About the social media slander?" "Quite a lot, actually. They've made false public statements that damage your reputation, Ms. Miller. That's textbook defamation." "I don't have money for a lawsuit," Margaret admitted. "You don't need to sue them," Elaine replied. "You just need to show them you could." Back at the apartment, Linda arrived with additional documentation she'd gathered through her contacts. "The Reynolds have been borrowing from everyone in Boston," she reported. "And their social standing is the only collateral they have left." Margaret nodded slowly, a plan forming. "Daniel, do you still have access to the wedding guest list?" "Yes, but why?" "Because we're going to tell the truth," Margaret said simply. "Not out of vengeance, but because those people deserve to know who they're really dealing with." The email went out Monday morning to 300 of Boston's most influential citizens, the same 300 who had been invited to witness Daniel and Jessica's wedding. Attached were copies of the predatory prenuptial agreement, documentation of the pending bankruptcy filing, and screenshots of text messages between Jessica and her boss that Daniel had recovered from her cloud backup. The cover note was brief and dignified. "To our friends and family, we regret to inform you that the wedding between Daniel Miller and Jessica Reynolds has been canceled due to circumstances that have recently come to light. While we had hoped to handle this matter privately, the Reynolds family's public statements have made that impossible. The attached documents speak for themselves. We ask only for the truth to be known. Sincerely, Daniel Miller and Margaret Miller." By noon, Victoria Reynolds had taken down her tearful video. By 3, Charles Reynolds had called Daniel 3 times, moving from threats to desperate pleas. At 4:30, Margaret's doorbell rang. She opened it to find Jessica standing there, her perfect appearance now disheveled, eyes red from crying. "You've ruined everything," Jessica spat. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Margaret regarded her calmly. "I protected my son, something your parents failed to do for you. My parents were trying to save our family. By sacrificing mine? By using their daughter as bait?" Margaret shook her head. "They taught you that people are either useful or useless. That love is transactional. That's not protection, Jessica. That's abuse." Jessica's anger crumbled slightly. "You don't understand. We were going to lose everything. And now you have," Margaret acknowledged. "I'm truly sorry for that, but not for stopping you from using my son to bail out your family." "What am I supposed to do now?" Jessica asked, vulnerability breaking through her polished exterior. "Start over. Work hard. Build something real." Margaret's voice softened. "You're young, intelligent, and capable. Your worth isn't tied to your family name or your bank account." Jessica stared at her for a long moment. "You really believe that, don't you?" "I've lived it," Margaret replied simply. every day for 20 years. After Jessica left, Margaret sat on her small balcony watching the sunset over Boston. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. "Dinner at my place tonight? I'm cooking." She smiled, typing back, "On my way." 1 year later, Margaret walked through the doors of Massachusetts General Hospital, wearing not her cafeteria uniform, but a tailored blazer and comfortable pumps. As the newly appointed Director of Food Services, she now oversaw the operation she had once been just a part of. "Looking sharp, Director Miller," Linda called as they passed in the hallway. "Still getting used to it," Margaret admitted with a smile. After the Reynolds scandal had blown over, Margaret had finally accepted the promotion she'd been offered and declined 3 times over the years. With Daniel established in his career at a respected public interest law firm, she felt free to focus on her own path for the first time in decades. She checked her watch. Just enough time to finish her afternoon rounds before meeting Daniel for their weekly dinner. As she headed toward the cafeteria, her phone rang. "Mrs. Miller? This is Victoria Reynolds." Margaret stopped walking, surprised. "Mrs. Reynolds, how can I help you?" The woman on the other end sounded different, humbled perhaps. I wanted to thank you." "Thank me?" Margaret echoed in disbelief. "After everything fell apart last year, Charles and I divorced. The bankruptcy proceedings finished last month. I've started over, working as an event coordinator. It's not what I imagined for myself, but..." Victoria paused. "I'm actually happier than I've been in years." "I'm glad to hear that," Margaret said sincerely. "Jessica mentioned something you told her, about worth not being tied to names or bank accounts. I didn't understand that then, but I'm beginning to." After they hung up, Margaret continued to the cafeteria, greeting the staff she now supervised, many of whom had been her colleagues for years. That evening, she arrived at Daniel's apartment to find him cooking pasta and telling stories about his latest case, representing low-income families facing eviction. "I have news," he said as they sat down to eat. "I've been offered a partnership." "Daniel, that's wonderful," Margaret exclaimed. "It's not a big firm with corner offices," he cautioned. "The pay is modest," Margaret smiled. "Is it work that matters to you?" "More than anything," he answered. "Every day I help people who remind me of us, of you, fighting against systems designed to take advantage of them." "Then it sounds perfect." After dinner, they sat on Daniel's balcony with cups of coffee, looking out at the same Boston skyline visible from Margaret's apartment, just from a different angle. "I've been thinking about everything that happened last year," Daniel said, "about how close I came to making the biggest mistake of my life." Margaret nodded, waiting. "You know what amazes me most?" he continued. "You were willing to step aside, to let me go, even when it hurt you deeply, because you thought that's what would make me happy. That's what being a parent is," Margaret said simply. "No," Daniel corrected gently. "That's what being an extraordinary parent is. I never thanked you properly, not just for last year, but for everything, for every sacrifice you made, for always putting me first." "You didn't need to thank me," Margaret replied. "Seeing the man you've become is thanks enough." As the city lights twinkled below them, Margaret reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The hard years, the sacrifices, the lonely nights, all of it had been worth it for this moment of quiet understanding between them. "You know," Daniel said, breaking the comfortable silence, "Jessica sent me an email last week." Margaret raised an eyebrow. "Oh?" "She's working at a marketing firm in Chicago. Started at the bottom, no family connections. She said she's learning what it means to earn something." He smiled slightly. "She also said to tell you that you were right." Margaret nodded, feeling no satisfaction or vindication, only hope that Jessica, too, was finding her way to something real and meaningful. As the evening ended and Margaret prepared to leave, Daniel hugged her tightly. "I love you, Mom," he said, the words carrying the weight of understanding that had deepened between them. "I love you too," she replied. "Always have, always will." Walking home through the gentle spring evening, Margaret Miller reflected on how sometimes losing what you thought you wanted could lead you straight to what you truly needed. In trying to protect her son, she had found her own strength. In letting him go, she had gotten him back. And in facing her greatest fear, being separated from the person she loved most. She had discovered that true bonds could never really be broken. If you enjoyed this journey of love, sacrifice, and redemption, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps bring more stories like Margaret's to life. Thank you for listening.